We can import files into After Effects by going up to the File menu and selecting Import. We can also select to import recent footage. That way, if we worked on with a certain piece of footage in a different file, a different project, we can just bring it in from that project in order to use that file without having to search for it. But here we can select from File, Multiple Files, Placeholder, and Solid. If we select the file, from here we can select any file that we want, and by clicking Open, you'll see that it's added to the project window. By selecting to import multiple files, I can select one file, and when I click Open, you'll see that I automatically get the same pop-up window for the multiple file. And here I can just continue to click and import the files until I'm done, and then when I'm finally done, I can just click the Done button there. We also have placeholders. Here we can set up the name of the placeholder and the size and time for the actual placeholder. And if I were to click OK, you can see that this looks very similar to the missing footage. And here we have it called missing name. And we would use this if we didn't have the footage yet for the file that we would want to use, but we want to see the timing within the actual composition. We can also create a solid from the import. And here the solid will just be added to our project window and not to the actual solid folder like the rest of the solids. Although we can just drag it to there and it'll be positioned with the rest of the solids. We can also import a project into the actual project window, and here you can see that I have my project, and within this project we also have the other folders for the project that for the files that are within that project. And so this way we can work on multiple projects at the same time inside of one project. Sometimes we may import files into After Effects in order to play around with their interactivity with the other files that we'll be using in our composition. Sometimes this can get a little bit cluttered, and we'll want to remove the files that we're not using to create our composition. What we can do then is we can select the compositions that we would actually want to use. So say I had two compositions within my project here. I can select one of the compositions, or both of them if I wanted to keep them both, and I can come to Reduce Project, and by selecting this you can see that we get a pop-up window here, and After Effects tells me how many items it has gotten rid of, and that we can also undo this if we made a mistake and didn't select one of our compositions, or we selected one too many. But if we selected one too many, we can always just reselect the ones that we did want and go back up and reduce the project. And here you'll see that the only files that remain are the ones that were being used in the actual composition. And so this is a nice way to clean up our project window If it begins to get too cluttered and we want to re-import some other files in order to play around with those, and we can always just go back to the reduce project in order to get rid of the unnecessary files, so that After Effects doesn't take up so much memory when we save the project. One of the nice features of After Effects is that we can customize our tool palettes and the workspace area in order to more efficiently work on the project that we're creating. For instance, if I'm using my composition window much more than my, here, let me zoom in, than my timeline, I can resize my timeline in order to make room for my composition window. Or I can also move palettes around, and we can also drag the tabs of the actual palettes, so that we can create a different combination of palettes, and we can place any palettes together that we want, so that we can use just the palettes that we need in order to create our project. We can also go up to this workspace in the window, and we can save our workspace if we have it positioned the way we like it. That way, if we move things around and we want to go back to our old position, we can just save that, and then as we continue working, I may want to return to it, and we just go back up to workspace and select it, and it'll reset our palettes to that position. If we want to get back to the default view, we can select this one comp view, and since I'm zoomed in, the composition window is all stretched out. But as you can see, After Effects places it in the exact same position that it would have been in when I first started. But since I was zoomed in, the window retains its size and is just moved back to that area. We can also select to have two views of a composition. That way, in case I may need to view this composition here at a full screen to see how the entire image looks, but I may be working in very close into this composition here. And this way I can work on one composition and make my changes here and see how it would be affected in the composition for the total image. And I can get rid of one of the composition windows and it'll return to the basic one view. Although in the window it'll still say two comp views because that's what our view was at that point. And we can also select from 4 comp views, and this will be helpful to do the exact same thing with the 2 comp views, but also for the point where we start working with 3D, where we'll need to have multiple views in order to work with the actual files.